Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and Assassin's Creed Mirage has been out for several weeks at this point, and as of the recording of this video, they still have not released any sales data, any units sold for this game. The only thing they put out is that little image that I reported on a week ago about the game tracking in line with Odyssey and Origins, and also being the highest selling new gen game from Ubisoft. As I showed in that video, the new gen games for Ubisoft aren't exactly competitions for an Assassin's Creed game. In this video, I don't want to talk anymore about my thoughts on the games beyond the occasional reference because I've already gone into depth on my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Mirage in my review. If you're interested, go check that out. But I wanted to delve into a part of that image that I hadn't done previously. So this is the image that I'm referring to. Assassin's Creed Mirage is apparently out for 6 days at this point and doing extremely well according to this post, and yet they give you no actual data that is important. The only data they give you is people have spent 500 years parkouring around Baghdad, and yeah, as I said in my previous video, that's probably because the parkour is so goddamn slow. Then of course 60 million leaps of faith and 1.2 million street cats petted. Now, the thing that I didn't talk about in that video was the idea that this game was in line and comparable to the successful launches of Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. As we all know, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was the highest selling Assassin's Creed game in the franchise's history, so of course it's not going to compete with that, despite it being a close follow-up prequel to that story. But I wanted to delve into that and say, what does it track like? What did those original games track like? Of course, we got the sales figures for those previous ones. Still haven't gotten the sales figures for Mirage. As long as they don't give us the sales figures, I throw into question all claims of success that Ubisoft gives for Mirage. But Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, how well did they do? How well did they trend? Of course, trends aren't something that equate necessarily equally to sales, but trends is something that we have for Mirage. We can compare the trends of Mirage to the trends of the predecessors. So for Assassin's Creed Origins, which came out in 2017, we have Assassin's Creed Origins compared with Horizon Zero Dawn, The Evil Within 2, and Super Mario Odyssey. Now, these weren't the biggest games of the year, but they were pretty comparable. There's, of course, going to be ones that are far more popular than the ones that I chose to compare Assassin's Creed with, but they are interesting comparisons. So for Horizon Zero Dawn, of course, that one blew it out of the water, got way higher back in its release date, back in February, March timeframe. But when you get to the release date of Assassin's Creed Origins, which is right around the time of Super Mario Odyssey, it's actually pretty comparable to a Mario game. An Assassin's Creed game competing with a Mario game is utterly insane. In fact, it beats it for the year with an average of 11 trending points over Mario's 10. Of course, the high for Odyssey got higher than the high for Origins, but Origins did pretty well in the trending. It beat a Mario game. Now let's look at Odyssey when it came out. The games that I'm comparing it to are Far Cry 5, Marvel's Spider-Man, which was a blowout success, and Detroit Becoming Human. Again, those aren't the most successful games of the year, with that title going to most likely God of War or Red Dead Redemption 2. But these are good comparisons to be made. Marvel's Spider-Man, which was an astronomical success, was significantly higher than Odyssey's, true, but it is closer than I would have expected considering how close the release dates for those two games were. I'm very surprised by this. It's kind of impressive for Odyssey. Yes, it's lower than I would have hoped for Odyssey, as it's my favorite of the reboot trilogy, of the RPG trilogy, but it's still an interesting comparison to be made. Odyssey trended pretty well in comparison to the recent releases of its time. Now, of course, as I said, Valhalla was a blowout success, far and away the highest selling Assassin's Creed game ever, but I wanted to briefly look at its trends to see how it compared to games of its era. I don't have Cyberpunk on this list. As many of you know, that game was talked about a lot, mainly because of the issues with it. When I added in Cyberpunk, it blew everything out of the water. Nothing was even blipping on this graph when Cyberpunk was put in, so that's not an unconscious omission. I left it out on purpose, but I compared it to Marvel's Avengers, which was a big game from back then, Doom Eternal, massive game, and Last of Us Part 2, and Dead by Daylight, some of the games that came out during the 2020 timeframe. And Valhalla wins that score astronomically. Valhalla outtrended The Last of Us Part 2, and for those of you who remember, there was a lot of buzz around the game because of the controversy of it as much as the sales figures. Yes, the sales figures did good. They were pretty respectable. They're not as good as people claim they are, and the franchise is not in a very good state after The Last of Us Part 2, but from a trending standpoint, it did incredibly well. It trended high because of all the drama surrounding it, and yet Valhalla still trended significantly higher than that when it came out. By comparison, Valhalla was an extraordinary success, and coming off the backs of that, especially with the continuation of its story, Mirage should have done very well. So let's look at Mirage and see how it's currently trending at in the last 30 days during its release and a little bit beforehand. I'm comparing it to Starfield, Baldur's Gate 3, and Lies of P. Baldur's Gate has been out for several months at this point and has experienced quite a dip in its popularity, which is something that happens. Baldur's Gate 3 was a massive success. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's been several months. There's going to be a dip in its trending, but it's still far outweighed any success of Starfield, which also had a dip during this period. But the game that I wanted to really focus on was Lies of P, an independent Dark Souls-esque game with Pinocchio that I didn't even know was going to come out before it did when I started seeing people play it. That's when I found out this game was coming out. I'm sure I wasn't the only person, but Lies of P trended above Assassin's Creed Mirage in the last 30 days when both games released. Yes, it's not much higher. It's only 2 trending points higher, but it's Lies of P, an independent game that's not part of any existing franchise and not coming off the backs of one of the most successful video games in franchise history with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. What is going on? Why is Mirage trending so low? This is a sign that something is going on. There's a reason why they're not releasing the sales figures, and I believe it has something to do with this. And I can only imagine how much Spider-Man 2 is blowing Assassin's Creed Mirage out of the water, despite Assassin's Creed Odyssey doing surprisingly well against Spider-Man 2018. But that's where the trending is at with Mirage. It's a massive downtrend from the previous games in the franchise, despite the claim made by Ubisoft that it's a relative equal launch to Origins and Odyssey. Until they release the sales figures, I will not believe that Mirage is doing as well as the other games in the recent Assassin's Creed franchise, or maybe even at all in the franchise overall. This game is going so far under the radar that I've seen nobody in my sphere besides me playing it, reviewing it, or even talking about it. Mirage is not the blowout success that people are claiming it is. Yes, there are a lot of people who are enjoying the game. Yes, there are a lot of stands on Twitter praising it to high heaven and defending it with all that they have. But that's something that we see with every new property, is there's going to be crazy over-the-top people who spam out praise of a new property, whether or not it be movies, television, or video game. But the numbers don't lie. Assassin's Creed Mirage is not doing as well as any of its predecessors, and the claims about it being a high-selling game can 100% be thrown into question until Ubisoft gives us the sales figures. I will be happily proven wrong if they will just release those figures. Whenever a game company does not release the sales figures for their property, that's when you know something is wrong. Whenever something is a blowout success, whenever a studio is proud of a game selling, they will release the units sold. And if they're not happy with it, they'll just say empty platitudes like, oh yeah, it's doing amazing, and yet never give you any solid data whatsoever. That is what I believe is going on here, that it is underperforming and they are just trying to clamber onto whatever success, whatever small figures of praise that they can get from their stand base argument and the normies out there and the Assassin's Creed fans who are no longer interested in the franchise in its current state. One minor thing I wanted to tack on to the end of this video. Apparently there was a setting in Assassin's Creed Mirage which is being changed, which made the camera lens flare a little bit, made it look like it was being filmed through an actual camera rather than a digital camera. Apparently this was bothering a lot of people. I never even noticed this setting, but there was a little bit of buzz about it, and Ubisoft has announced that they are changing that setting, removing it for everyone, and then adding in an option to turn it back on manually. I don't know why this was such a big deal. I didn't see a lot of buzz about it. I didn't have any issue with this setting myself. So the one thing that they changed and listened to fan feedback on is something that I haven't seen any sort of overall negativity towards. It's a weird piece of news coming out of Ubisoft, considering all that I've gone over in this video and others like it about the success of Assassin's Creed Mirage. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? Yo, Oh, I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.